Hi guys, I'm Tracy Andas. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is about the documentary Girl in the Picture. And before we get started, I just wanted to say this video is for entertainment purposes only. Please like, share, and subscribe so I can build my community. So this documentary starts out on April 1990 in the late of night. Three men find a young blonde woman on the side of the road. They call the ambulance and she's taken to the hospital. At the hospital, a man shows up claiming to be her husband. His name's Clarence Hughes, and he identifies the woman as his wife, a stripper in Tulsa known as Tanya Hughes, that they have a 2-year-old child together. And this is where the story begins. Now, I just want you to keep in mind that there's a lot of aliases going on here, and it gets a little confusing. So I'm gonna put the aliases for Clarence Hughes, AKA all the many things he goes by, here at the top of this video so that you can kind of keep up. But pretty much, if I'm talking about a bad person, it's gonna be him. He's the one we're talking about here. And the woman that we're gonna be talking about, this blonde woman that was taken to the hospital, her story, she has a couple aliases, and her story will go back and forth a little bit, but I think you'll follow what I'm telling you along the way. Okay, so the doctors, when they look at this woman and they see her injuries, they think it's a little strange. The story doesn't really match up with her injuries. She does not look like a woman who was a pedestrian walking and run over by a car. It just or hit by a car. It just doesn't, you know, doctors know what injuries look like, and it's not matching up with what happened. She's in pretty good condition considering the story that is told to them, but she does have numerous bruises on her body, some old, some new, and they're questioning the situation. It's just not jiving with them. Now, unfortunately, the young woman does not make it, and that's also kind of disturbing and interesting to them because she seemed like she was doing pretty well, and then there was a turn of events and they lost her. The girls from the club that she worked at was called Passions, and it was a group of strippers that loved Tanya. That was their girl, and they wanted to notify her family of her passing. So they reached out to a woman and they told her what had happened and that their daughter had passed away. And the woman on the other side of the line said, "My daughter has been dead for 20 years. She died when she was 18 months old." So this is when they realized this was not the person they thought she was. This was not her name. And so the story kind of begins there. Like, who is Tanya? And these were her friends, and they wanted answers. So the next person that's interviewed in the documentary is named Karen Parsley. She was also a stripper at Passions, and she talks very fondly of Tanya. They both started working at the club at the same time. They were both kind of the youngest of the group of girls. They were also very different than the group of girls. They were kind of nerdy, bookworms, and really smart, and had different lifestyle than the rest of the girls. Pretty wholesome girls, you know, they're kind of innocent, and they were the babies of the group, and they were treated as such. Now, Karen met Clarence and Michael. Clarence was Tanya's much older husband, and Michael was her beautiful 2-year-old child, just absolutely the love of her life, apple of her eye. And Karen and Tanya did spend time together. However, Clarence didn't want Tanya going anywhere with Michael without him. He made that very clear, and he made it clear to Karen too. So Tanya called Karen up, and she was absolutely terrified because she found out Clarence had taken out a life insurance policy on her, and this just absolutely messed with her head. She just was beside herself. On April 25th, Clarence called Karen, and he told her that Tanya had been involved in a hit and run, and that she was in the ICU, and she couldn't have anybody visiting her, but he wanted her to know that. But Karen was Tanya's best friend, and she was gonna visit her anyway. So she did go to the hospital, and she did visit her friend, and she noticed scratches on Tanya. It didn't look to her like they were caused by hit and run. It looked like she'd been attacked or had been in a fight. And the nurses told her very clearly that this was foul play. This is not the story that has been told. And this was very, very, very upsetting to Karen, and she did talk to GHS about the situation. She was worried that Clarence wouldn't be able to take care of Michael, and so they ended up taking Michael away, and they put him in foster care. And they had the most wonderful foster parents. They looked after Michael for 4 years. They took such good care of him. They considered him their son, and all the while, Clarence was trying to get custody. He wanted his child back, and even though he had visitation, he wanted him back full time. And Michael wasn't a fan of Clarence. He did not warm up to Clarence, even though this was supposedly his father. He just did not ever want to go when they had to bring him to see him. And during this time, they did have a paternity test because it was requested and by DHS, and it was proved that Michael was not Clarence's child. So that ended all his visitation rights. And at the same time, Merle and Ernest started noticing a blue truck rolling up real slow to their house, rolling on by, and they started to get concerned, and they reached out to the police, and the police were like, that's nothing to be concerned about. Well, they were wrong, because September 12th, 1994, Clarence walked right into Michael's school, the Indian Meridian Elementary School. He asked to talk to the principal, and he took the principal, James Davis, by gunpoint and brought him into Michael's classroom and abducted Michael. And he took James's truck, and he went out on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere, tied him up, handcuffed him, duct taped his mouth, and off he went with Michael. Took off with that child. And eventually, thank goodness, James Davis was found, and that is when the fury started. That is when there was like a mad race to find this child. At 6 years old, this beautiful boy was captured by this crazed man who turns out not to be his father. And the abduction caused the police to bring in Joe Fitzpatrick, who is an FBI.
He kidnappings, you want to make the recovery in the first 48 hours. If you don't, your chances go down drastically. The very first thing we did was put out an all points bulletin. All the agencies in Oklahoma were on the lookout for a young boy by the name of Michael Hughes.
And boy, what an FBI agent this man is. His mind is brilliant. I mean, he, to me, is really one of the big heroes of the story. And he knew how important it was to get, to find that child within probably about 7 days he had to find the child, 7 to 10 days. He said after that, he's just going to be a nuisance to Clarence. Clarence is going to not want him anymore. He's going to be too much trouble. And so they feverishly started looking for this man. And when Clarence tried to cash in the life insurance policy that he had taken out on Tanya, he used his social security number. That social security number was Franklin Floyd's social security number. And that's when everything kind of came to the forefront. They knew who this man was, and they knew how dangerous he was. He had quite a record. He was bad to the core. In 1962, he abducted and essayed a 4-year-old girl. 4 years old, you guys. In 1963, in 1963 he was able to commit another crime after the 1962 crime, but he robbed a bank. And then in 1973, he attacked a woman. Now, he did do about 10 years of prison time for the abduction and the essay of the 4-year-old. But I just don't know how you let anybody like that out, ever. I mean, how... It's beyond me. Anyway, after being in prison for 10 years, he went on the run. He was on the run for 17 years before they caught him under all these aliases and torturing Tanya basically the whole time. And we'll get into that. So Jenny came forward. Now, Jenny is another hero in the story. She is a true friend to Tanya, but she didn't know her as Tanya. She is watching this all unfold on television, and she and her mom are like, wait a second, that's not Tanya, that's Sharon. Sharon was Jenny's best friend in high school. I mean, they were thick as thieves, and she was a nerd, just like Sharon was. They went to Forest Park High School. In 1984, they met at the student council camp. She dreamed of going to Georgia Tech and becoming an aerospace engineer. That's what she was going to do. And she was a great student, and she loved to learn. And when she was accepted with a full ride scholarship, Floyd told his daughter her mother was hit by a car on a bridge when she was 2 years old. And because of that, she really was the one to take care of Floyd. She cooked him dinner every night, and she just doted on him. And he didn't really allow her to have friends. So when she did get the news of the full ride scholarship, she was very enthusiastic and excited about it, and so was her dad. He took out a whole page in the yearbook with a glamour shot of his daughter, which was odd, and just really seemed to be supportive of her. And then she shows up pregnant. Convenient timing, right? And she calls Jenny and she tells her that she's pregnant and that her dad doesn't want her to go to college, and that they're going to go to Arizona, and she's going to have the child and give it up for adoption. And at this time, Joe tells Jenny that Sharon and Floyd, they're married. In 1989, a year before Sharon's death, Sharon Marshall became Tanya Tadlock, and Warren Marshall became Clarence Hughes. They stole the names off a tombstone in Alabama, and they got married in New Orleans and started their whole new life and their whole new identity. She was employed as a stripper in Tampa. The strip club was very famous, and the women were beautiful, and they had very high-end clientele, and the strip club was named Moan's Venus. And even though it was a fully nude strip club, Sharon, she would walk around in this beautiful lace lingerie, and she just was a little bit more innocent than the rest of the girls. She was also one of the younger girls. And when she first started working there, her dad told her that he wanted her to ask to be part of the Millionaires Club. And so she asked Heather, who was one of the head girls at the club, if she could be part of this. And of course, Heather was like, yes, you can. So the first party that she took her to, this party, I mean, this was a party where you can make $500 to $1,000 a night. This was big bucks. Well, apparently that wasn't enough for Clarence, because she was told by her dad to offer favors to the men for $50, and he gave her condoms. And when one of the guys told Heather about it, he said, you need to get your girl out of here. She's offering, favors. Heather was like, what are you doing? And she says, well, my dad told me to do this, so he gave me condoms. So this was a party that all she would have had to do was show up, do 3 dances, no lap dances, no touching, and she would have left with $500 to $1,000. But apparently that wasn't enough money for her dad. Now, the next interview in the documentary was really interesting. It was Michelle Couples, and she was the babysitter from across the street. She was quite young when she babysitted, I think 15 years old when she was babysitting Michael. She talks fondly about the time when Sharon's friend Cheryl would come to visit. Now, Cheryl was also a stripper at the same club, and she was quite young, and she was kind of the polar opposite of Sharon. She was this dark-haired, fiery Italian girl, and she came across as really tougher than she was. She was also very sweet and innocent, like Sharon was, and they were best friends, and Sharon spent lots of time with Cheryl, but the only reason that Clarence allowed it was because he had a thing for Cheryl, and he would let Cheryl come over because he wanted to have a relationship with her. But Sharon was just so excited that she actually got to have a friend that she just allowed it and just went along with it. And when Michelle was over one time babysitting, and the rest were home as well, Clarence was there and Cheryl was there, and Sharon was there. They were all hanging out together, and they were gonna watch a movie. And so Clarence puts in a movie. Well, it ends up being a videotape that Clarence was taking pictures and topless videos of Sharon and Cheryl. And this was really shocking to Michelle. And word got out at the strip club about this. And this was very upsetting because at this time, Clarence was still supposedly Sharon's dad. And so why is Sharon's dad taking pictures of her topless? And so the rumors kind of went wild, and they left abruptly, Sharon and Clarence and Michael. And there wasn't any explanation as to why they left. It will reveal itself later. There is a very good reason why they left without telling anybody. So the next interview, Jenny tells the time that she slept over at Sharon's house. And Sharon, again, wasn't really allowed to have friends. So she was so excited to have a friend come spend the night at her house. This is the first time her best friend has ever been to her house. Her mom's like, okay, you can go spend the night, And so they were doing what young girls do, and they were in the bedroom, and they were getting ready for bed. And then Sharon was showing her all the beautiful lingerie that she has. And Jenny's like, wow, that's really pretty, but why do you have all this? And Sharon just said, oh, it's just because it's pretty, I like it. And then as they're changing in her bedroom, Clarence comes roaring in with a gun, and he starts yelling and making a ruckus and scaring the bejesus out of Jenny. And he leaves, and she's crying and upset, and of course Sharon's trying to calm her down, and then he comes back in with the gun, and he tells Jenny, put that pillow over your head, and he proceeds to essay his daughter right there in the room with Jenny listening to all of it. After he leaves, they don't really say anything. They go to bed, and in the morning Sharon just tells her girlfriend, that's just how Daddy is, and please don't say anything. And really upsetting situation. And that actual incident really terrorized Jenny for her whole life. I mean, this was her best friend, and this is how her best friend is living her life. And she always resented and hated Clarence since that moment. So as Joe's looking into the case, he realizes that Sharon could not possibly be the daughter of Floyd, because Floyd was in prison from 1963 to 1972, and Sharon was born 1969, 1970. She was 20 when she died. So that's when they decided to set up a sting, and they decided to that eventually Clarence was going to have to get a driver's license. And so they looked at where he had done time, and he figured, okay, these are the places that he's probably going to go back to, because a lot of times when people are criminals, they kind of have patterns, and he decided that this is a pattern and he'll go back to one of these places. So he reached out to the departments there and gave the information that he now had, and said, okay, I want you to look if this person applies for a driver's license, because they knew his driver's license was getting ready to be renewed, that contact us and we will be able to nab him. And so sure enough, they were able to set up a sting, and they were able to say that they were bringing the driver's license to him, and when they brought it to him, he was swarmed with police officers and he was put in jail. And they started to go around to the neighbors, and they said, well, he's only been here for about 6 weeks, and we never saw anybody named Michael around him. So nobody had any information to give them. And this is really concerning because they're like, well, where is the kid? So they really thought, we're really hoping that when they found him, they would find Michael. And that wasn't the case. So they couldn't get him for murder because there was no body. And so they were able to get him on charges of kidnapping, carjacking with firearm, which was about 5 years minimum, I think. And then they were also able to charge him with using a firearm during a kidnapping, which was 25 years. So, of course, Floyd, being as arrogant as he is, much like Ted Bundy, who thought he was smarter than everybody, he decided to be his own advocate. And Jenny was testifying, and that was really scary for Jenny because she had to be questioned by the very person that was responsible for doing all these horrible things to her friend. I mean, he had her stripping, and he had her sexually whenever he wanted, and Jenny knew all this. And so she wanted to testify for her friend, and she got up there, and he says to her, isn't it so that you formed your opinion of me because of what the FBI told you? And she said, no, I formed my opinion of you when I saw you were buying your daughter sexy lingerie and the way you were dressing her. And we really know what she was talking about. It wasn't really just about the lingerie, because what she witnessed when she was a little girl, and that was very powerful. In fact, so powerful that Floyd got 52 years in prison. And this is not even for Michael's murder, because at the time, they didn't even know where Michael was. So after the sentencing, crazily enough, they found pictures in the truck that was stolen from the principal. They found it underneath the truck. I don't know how they found it. I swear this is a God moment, because there's no way you would find these pictures, how well they were hidden. But these pictures were very obscene, and in these pictures, not only did they find pictures of little Sharon, in uncompromising states of dress when she was a little child, very badly beaten woman that was so badly beaten that they knew there's no way this woman is alive. And so they really wanted to identify who this woman was, because if they could identify her, then they could charge this man on a capital crime and hopefully get him off the streets forever. So Joe, and his incredible, masterful detective work, notices in the picture of this girl, badly beaten girl, she has tan marks. So he says to himself, okay, I know that Floyd has done time in Georgia, he's done time in Florida, and he's done time in Kentucky. So I'm going to send these pictures to all 3 of these state departments and see if they can come up with anything in their database of some missing person. And in 1995 in Florida, there was a body found. And the body was found by some road workers, and there was a skull found, and in the skull there was 2 bullets, and it was an unsolved mystery. They didn't know who this person was, but a year later, when Joe had sent everybody these pictures, they were able to match up a shirt in the picture of the badly beaten woman with the remains that they had gotten of the skull. And they did dental records, and then they found out who this woman was. And this woman was no other than Cheryl Ann Comesso, the other stripper friend, remember from earlier? This is why they left so abruptly. It wasn't because of rumors. And Heather talks about this encounter probably the day that this all went down. Floyd was out in his truck outside of the strip club, and Cheryl was talking to him, and they were arguing. And it got pretty loud, and Heather went and got Cheryl and kind of took her away, and then he started yelling at Heather and kind of lunged his car at her, and it was just a really scary moment. And that was the last moment that Heather ever saw Cheryl, and that was also the last moment that Heather saw Sharon and Floyd, because they abruptly took off. And what they ended up doing was taking off and getting married. He decided that they would be looking for a man and his daughter and child, and so if they were to get married, they wouldn't be able to find them as easily. So when they were able to match all this up and find out that this was Cheryl, they were able to charge Floyd with first-degree murder, and now he's facing the lethal injection. He is never getting out of jail. So at this opportunity, Matt Burbeck has heard about the story, and he's going to write a book about it. And he decides to interview Franklin Floyd. And this book captured the attention of all of the wonderful true crimers out there, and they started putting things together. And after 1 year of the book being out, anonymous person emailed him and said, would the DNA of Sharon's daughter help? And that is when Megan DeFrance came into the story. Megan was the biological daughter of Sharon, and she was given up for adoption. So at the same time that this was happening, special agents Scott LeBeau and Nate Furr decided to also go to speak with Floyd and try to find out, where's Michael's body, and who is this woman that you were supposedly married to? Who was she? And they wanted to know how did you kill Michael, and then just out of the blue, after he's talking to them and thinking they're there to represent him, he says 2 bullets in the back of the head. Tried to make it quick. And so now we have a murder case. We have another murder case. And so this 20-year-old cold case was solved, and he admitted to killing Michael. And he told him where he buried him, on the Oklahoma-Texas border. However, they could not find Michael's remains. But at the same meeting, he tells them about Sandy and how he met her at church. She was a woman who had lost her 3 children because of circumstance. She had Sharon with Cliff, her high school sweetheart, and he went off to Vietnam, and when he came back, she had another boyfriend, and that boyfriend she married and had 2 other little girls with, Allison and Amy. And when he left her, she moved into a trailer home, and the trailer home was hit by a tornado, and she just all of a sudden her whole life changed. She does not know what to do. She thought she would get help, so she went for help, and they ended up taking her children from her. And they said, you can't take care of these children, so we're gonna take them from you until you can get yourself together, and we recommend you go to church. So she follows the direction. She wants her children back, and so she goes to church. And who does she run into? Floyd. And he woos her and hears her story and says, you know, I'll marry you, we'll get your children back, and I'll take good care of you all. And he didn't take care of her. In fact, he tortured her. He had a knife on him, and anytime she got out of line a little bit, he would threaten her. And one day she wrote a bad check to get diapers for her kids, and she got a sentence of 30 days in jail. And at that time, he decided to take the children, and he dropped Allison and Amy off at the orphanage, and took Suzanne. Suzanne was the name of the young girl that we all know as Tanya, and Sharon, her name was Suzanne Sudakis. And he said he saw the birth certificate, and they did their research, and the mystery is solved. Now we know this poor tortured girl had been kidnapped at such a young age. She had to have been 4 or 5 when he stole her. And he raised her as his own child, and he lied to her and told her her mother was dead, and she died in a car accident, and she never knew any different. This man that abused her, and it's just a horrible story. No child should have an upbringing like that. Everybody deserves to have a childhood where they don't have any worries, and that they feel safe. And this poor girl, she never had a chance. As smart as she was, what a great life she could have had. And just by circumstance, she ran into this evildoer, and he just ruined her life, and ruined her child's life, and ruined everybody that loved her's life. And Jenny was her truest friend to the very end. She was lucky to have her, and she was really lucky to have Joe Fitzpatrick on her side. And Floyd is where he's supposed to be. And I hope you like this video. It is a little bit depressing, I'm not gonna lie, but it is quite a story. And if you can follow it, I hope I did it justice. And I, leave some comments. What do you think? And let me know if you enjoyed the video and the documentary. All right, take care, you guys. Bye.